So Romans chapter 9 and verse 5. Who are the fathers, and of whom is Christ, as concerning the flesh, who is over all, God blessed forever. Amen. This passage is quoted by trinitarians to prove that Christ is very God. The Trinitarian argument rests on the punctuation of this passage. Another Bible translation renders it differently. They are Israelites, to whom belong the fathers of their race according to the flesh is the Christ. God, who is over all, be blessed forever. Amen. There is no evidence in this translation in support of the Trinitarian claims. The passage appears to allude to Psalm 41 verse 13. Blessed be Yahweh, Elohim of Israel, from everlasting to everlasting. Amen and amen. Paul details the spiritual privileges of Israel, the sonship, the glory, the covenants, the law, the temple worship, the promises, the forefathers, and the Messiah himself of Jewish lineage. The apostle then concludes with a thankful acknowledgement of praise to God for all that he has done for Israel. Even if it is to be understood that Jesus is called God in this passage, we must also understand that God has delegated all the power and authority to Jesus. John chapter 5 and verse 19 and verse 30. 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verses 24 to 28. Also, those who act for God are referred to as God in the Old Testament. See Exodus chapter 23 and verse 20 and 21. Angels are called God in the following passages: Genesis chapter 16 and verse 7. Compare verse 13, Genesis chapter 28 and verse 8 and 11, and verses 15 and 16. Moses is referred to as a god to Pharaoh, Exodus chapter 7 and verse 1. God is translated from the Hebrew word Elohim. Elohim, translated God, can refer to the judges of Israel, as in Psalm 82 and verse 1 and verse 6. Compare John chapter 10 and verse 34. It is also translated judges in the King James Bible in Exodus chapter 21 and verse 6, Exodus chapter 22 and verses 8 and 9, and also again in Exodus chapter 22 and verse 28. However, Paul elsewhere makes it clear, however, that the head of Christ is God. 1 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 3. So the Son is not co-equal, therefore, with the Father.